Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound. Today is Monday, April 7th. Come on in, get seated. We were off last week. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there was no Wiltfong Whiparound. But now Steve is back from spring break 2025 and just in time because there was so much going on. I didn't know how to explain it all to you guys by myself. So we're going to cover it all with the best insider in the business. Speaking of best, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel because this is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. All right, let's bring in the great Steve Wiltfong. And Steve, Ohio State, that's where we're starting. The Buckeyes are trying to stay hot. They landed 2 elite safeties in the last week, but number 1 overall, Braylon Womack, was on campus, and I don't think it's over with him. How's Ohio State sitting with the 5-star safety?
You just kind of glazed over those recruiting wins too. Blaine Bradford from Louisiana choosing the Buckeyes over LSU and Texas, saying it's the best place for him to come get developed. The program that was recruiting him the hardest, he is now in the fold for the defending national champs. Simeon Caldwell, a safety linebacker hybrid that'll bring some versatility to the back seven of anybody's defense. Coach Patricia and company going to have fun moving Simeon Caldwell around in that scheme. And then, yes, Braylon Womack takes his visit to Ohio State this weekend, spends a couple days on campus. How about Coach Guerreri over there at Ohio State showing his recruiting chops on the trail? People are like, it's easy to recruit at Ohio State. Well, they're recruiting against great programs, and they're doing the same for Braylon Womack. His top 4 also has the Florida Gators in it, Texas A&M, Auburn, schools like Alabama and other programs certainly tried to make a push for Braylon Womack. He tells me Ohio State's number 1. They're his leader now. He's not going to decide till July or August, but he talked about how his skill set fits with Blaine Bradford's and Simeon Caldwell's. And he said, I don't run from smoke. I go towards the smoke. He wants to play with the BIA, the best in America. He sees that at Ohio State, sees a track record of development, the stage they play on, what they're able to offer their football players on the field with development, off the field with the city of Columbus, NIL opportunities, all of that. So Ohio State is trending right now for Braylon Womack, one of the most versatile two-way football players in the country, the number 1 safety recruit in the land, but he does everything on Friday nights, and I like where Ohio State stands in this recruitment.
Yeah, what a week for this defensive secondary of Ohio State. Now let's stay on the 5-star theme here and talk Felix Ojo. And there's a big battle brewing with the Texas Longhorns, who just hosted Ojo. Now Ohio State is set up to host him and his family. How are you feeling about this recruitment?
Well, Texas is where my On3 RPM is at, but if there's a program that makes me nervous about that prediction, it's Ohio State, because he's always had such a keen eye on the Buckeyes, and he's going to visit a couple of times before he decides he's going to come up this spring. He's slated to come on an official visit in the summer, and we've seen Ohio State go into the state of Texas and be heartbreak you for those in-state programs, from Devin Sanchez and Riley Pettijohn in last year's cycle. So many before that. Ohio State's always done a terrific job in the Lone Star State. They can boast guys like Paris Johnson in the NFL, Donovan Jackson in this draft class. Again, the way that they produce players at every position level, what they offer their athletes on and off the field. Ohio State is the program that is the biggest threat to Texas right now for Felix Ojo.
All right, we knew it would take a minute for the Buckeyes to kind of get over that national championship hangover, but now it looks like recruiting is heating up. You got any more intel for Ohio State fans?
Tons. Buckeyes fans, hit that recliner, lean back, and go along for the ride right now, as Ohio State is in the mix for many of their top targets right now. Still love where they stand for 4-star local running back Favor Akey. He visited 3 weeks in a row for spring practice. He's taking his official visit the weekend of June 6th. I look for that to be around the time he locks in a commitment with Ohio State. Deuce Gerald's the number 5 defensive lineman in the country. I think Ohio State is the front runner there. He was just at Oklahoma this weekend, also recently at Ohio State, among other places. Buckeyes, if they're pushing for Deuce Gerald, I think they'll be tough to beat. Darius Gray, the nation's number 2 interior offensive lineman, was on campus this past weekend. He says Ohio State's going to be in it for the end with him. He'll be back for an official visit. How about Luke Wafel? He's the number 1 recruit in New Jersey, Josh, number 5 edge rusher in the On3 player rankings. Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas, the top 3, but he had a fantastic visit to Ohio State earlier this spring. He's going to be back for an official visit. The Buckeyes way in that one for Luke Wafel. Receiver recruiting always going well under Brian Hartline and this coaching staff. 4-star receiver Caden Dixon-Wyatt. They're in a battle with Oregon for him. Jalen Lott, they're trying to beat the Ducks for. Brock Boyd's a 4-star on 300 recruit committed to TCU that I could see in Ohio State's class. When all said and done, some major in-state names. Sincere Johnson, the number 1 linebacker in the state, number 1 prospect in the state. Albert Hill IV, number 1 corner in the state, number 4 corner nationally. Those are in-state guys that Ohio State's got a great chance to land. My On3 RPM is on the Buckeyes for Sincere. Now, Albert Hill, Oregon, USC, Alabama, some of the other contenders for him. Tyler Atkinson, the number 1 linebacker in the country, has Ohio State on his short list. They hosted a number 1 running back in the land, Savion Hyder, a couple weeks ago. They will get him back for an official visit. They're going to get a swing at Mark Bowman, the number 2 tight end in the country. Justice Fitzpatrick is another corner from South Florida that visited this spring, now expected back for an official visit this summer. Same with Joey O'Brien, one of the top safeties in the land. So Ohio State, they're in the middle of it for a lot of guys. I could go on and on, but the Buckeyes have the number 3 recruiting class in the country. Jordan Thomas is a corner that visited this weekend that I could really see them rising up the board, or not rising. They're already in the list of front runners with Notre Dame, Michigan, for Jordan Thomas. So Ohio State ripping and roaring on the trail, coming off a national championship.
Let's talk some Oregon Duck recruiting as the Ducks are battling for more 5-stars. It was evident this weekend. 5-star offensive tackle, the number 2 ranked OT in the country, Emmanuel Iheanacho, was out in Eugene. He made the cross-country visit. Steve, what's the latest intel?
Well, I think it's a visit that'll keep Oregon in the thick of this recruitment moving forward. They'll get them back for an official visit at some point is my expectation in this recruitment. And Oregon has led at one point for Emmanuel Iheanacho. Alik Terry has done a really good job building a relationship with him, Oregon's offensive line coach. And they get him back on campus. They get him around the staff. They get him around the program. They get him around the players, the environment, the culture. He gets to see how he fits in with the people, the team. And I think he really likes Oregon. You know, Maryland's obviously setting the pace right now for Manny Iheanacho. He was at Maryland 2 weekends ago and will visit the local program a couple more times, including his official visit. You got some other contenders in there, Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Penn State, Texas A&M, where he's been a couple times this calendar year. But Oregon's near the top of the list. Sounds like it was a good visit this weekend and one that will keep the Ducks in it moving forward.
All right. Now, when it comes to the recruiting trail, there's battles all over the country raging on. But right now, we are watching Oregon and USC just trade haymakers on different recruits. Coming into focus today is offensive tackle Cody Green. He's committed to Oregon, but USC has been pressuring him. They've been pressing this recruitment, trying to get a flip. Green was back on campus at Oregon. Are the Ducks doing enough to hold off this USC flip?
I mean, absolutely. Cody Green's one of their top targets, regardless of position. So they're doing all they can to keep him in the fold. And he even reiterated last night, like I've said since committing, which was in August, it's not going to be easy to flip me. My commitment has been strong since day one. USC and Texas getting the chisel out, trying to chip away at that a little bit. But Cody Green said his visit was great, showed nothing but love all weekend. This was actually his first time seeing the offensive line coaching staff, Coach Terry and company, working with the guys. He loved that. He loved the efficiency of their practice, the high intensity of it all. And again, he really is excited about Coach Terry, the way he develops players at the point of attack, and then the message about how big of a priority he is. And he's been that way since day one. Cody Green is the top 10 player in the country per On3. He is the number 1 recruit in California. Oregon was kind of the first program to prioritize him in that manner of just like, hey, this is an elite guy here, and we're going to treat him as such. And now some other programs are playing catch up there.
All right, Steve, I know you got some more 5-star intel for Oregon fans.
Well, they're in the middle of it for a lot of 5-stars that are still out there. Obviously, that starts with the number one player in the country, Jackson Cantwell. I think the relationship with Dan Lanning from a head coach standpoint is second to none. I think him and his family really enjoy talking to Coach Lanning, and that's the kind of guy that he could see himself playing for. Loves the facilities at Oregon, the style of play, the trajectory of the program. Those are all things that have spoken to Jackson Cantwell. I think that obviously from an NIL standpoint, Oregon can check those boxes as well. So Oregon has a lot going for them in the recruitment of Jackson Cantwell. They're in the final two for Jared Curtis, 5-star quarterback from Tennessee. They have led at various points since the fall, but Georgia has clawed back into this one and even grabbed some momentum as of late. I feel like around Eugene, though, they're not rolling over. I mean, they love Jared Curtis. They're very vested. Will Stein might be his best relationship offense. The way the quarterbacks have produced as of late, from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel, just seeing the success that they've had, knowing how prolific he can be under center for Oregon. Those are all things that are exciting to Jared Curtis right now as they continue to battle in this recruitment. The number one linebacker in the country, Tyler Atkinson, took a recent visit out to Oregon. Dan Lanning has been recruiting him as long as anybody he's talked to in the 2026 class. Oregon's a dark horse for Tyler Atkinson. They're more than a dark horse for the number one cornerback in the country for the On3 industry, Brandon Arrington. They've been at the top of his list. They remain very much in his recruitment. And then Anthony Tank Jones, he's the number one recruit in Alabama, number 2 edge rusher in the land. He's been talking about Oregon for a long time now. That is another prospect that Oregon is in the middle of it for as they battle Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and Texas A&M for Anthony Tank Jones. I think that they have a realistic chance to land him as well.
Notre Dame is heating up, Steve. The Irish are inside the top 10. Big commitment over the weekend with Ebenezer Ewatade, and the Irish could be lined up to land a 5-star this week. Tell us what it's all about.
Yeah, Rodney Dunham Jr., Charlotte Myers Park, 5-star edge rusher, going to announce his college commitment on Thursday. And ever since he visited Notre Dame a couple weeks ago, the Irish's package of on-field and off-field success, they skyrocketed into pole position. Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, the competition. But I like where Notre Dame stands for Rodney Dunham. Ebenezer Ewatade's commitment saw Notre Dame rise to number 9 in the On3 industry recruiting rankings, coming off an appearance in the national championship game. Could Notre Dame finish with the top 5 class? They got some blue chippers out there to get them there, and that starts with Rodney Dunham Jr., the number 7 overall player in the country per On3. And if you pair him with Ebenezer Ewatade, who Charles Power, Cody Belair in the On3 scouting department rank as the number 6 edge in the country, it's going to be hard for anyone to recruit a similar duo as Notre Dame. If they're able to add Rodney Dunham to Ebenezer Ewatade, I think they're going to.
All right, Steve, we have been talking with Mike Singer of Blue and Gold, and it just sounds like this Notre Dame momentum is building and building. What other intel you got for Irish fans?
Well, I've made 4 Notre Dame On3 RPMs in the 2026 class over the last week. Let's start with running back Javian Osborne from Forney, Texas, a 4-star recruit that visited Notre Dame earlier this spring. Michigan is their competition. He's down to 2 programs, as our colleague Hayes Fawcett reported, talking to sources, talking to the Osborne camp. I think Notre Dame is trending. Coach Sider, Notre Dame's new running backs coach, has done a good job there just getting around the program. He felt very comfortable inside the Goog, underneath the Golden Dome, outside Touchdown Jesus, around the players at Notre Dame. Javian Osborne had a great visit. Notre Dame is now the leader in that recruitment. He's going to return to both again this spring. Michigan's still fighting, but they're going to have to flip the script to land Javian Osborne. I also predicted safety Nick Reddish to Notre Dame this morning. He's out of Charlotte Independence. He was back on campus this weekend. He told me the Irish lead, so that's an easy prediction right there. They just got to hold on. On 300, tight end Evan Jacobson visited over the weekend out of Iowa. He's high on Auburn, Iowa State, and others, but told me that Notre Dame is setting the pace in his recruitment, what they've done historically at tight end, again, what they offer on and off the field, proximity to home. I like where Notre Dame stands for Evan Jacobson. And then the fourth prediction in the 2026 class that I made in the last week is for Peach State four-star receiver Bubba Frazier. Notre Dame offered him in February, got him on campus this past weekend. The Irish are looking to get more electric in that receiver room, more big playability, more speed. They see that with Bubba Frazier, who is a 4-4 guy. They got some other big-time targets on the board that they're in the middle of it for, Josh. Tiki Hola is a four-star defensive lineman from Bastrop, Texas, who's going to visit this week. He's committing in May. SMU, Notre Dame battling there. I like where Notre Dame stands. Braden Robinson's a four-star receiver from Red Oak, Texas, who's coming back for a second time this calendar year. I would probably give Notre Dame the edge in his recruitment. He's coming off a great visit to Miami, though. Mikhail Blade is a four-star defensive end from Chicago. I have an old on 3 RPM for the Irish there. He visited this past weekend, had a great visit. They bring in four-star defensive lineman Noah Clark this weekend. I still think they lead for three-star linebacker Kobe Clapper out of Cincinnati. And probably the biggest name on the board after Rodney Dunham, Josh, it's Joey O'Brien. He was fantastic at the overtime OT7 event in Dallas this weekend. A safety recruit, a guy that kind of has the body type that reminds you of Kyle Hamilton. I have an on 3 RPM in favor of Notre Dame for Joey O'Brien. Now, Penn State, Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan are in the mix. He visits Oregon this weekend. Joey O'Brien's a top 100 recruit. He is in the top 2 or 3 recruits on Notre Dame's board. I like where the Irish stand right now for Joey O'Brien.
Alabama, they're trending for a pair of top in-state targets, Darian Morgan and running back Xavier Crowell. Those are the two names I want to talk about today, Steve. They're both on the offensive side of the ball. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I think this is just kind of rehashing some conversation that we've had on the Wiltfong Whiparound, the Inside Scoop, but both were at Auburn this past weekend, so doing some digging on those recruitments. I still like where Alabama stands with both. I think Darian Morgan loves the track record Jamarcus Shepard has of developing wide receivers, the offense Kalen DeBoer has had in his history as a football coach speaks to him. And then there's a lot of Alabama support around Darian Morgan. And then Xavier Crowell, I think that he too sees an opportunity to thrive at Alabama, just loves being on the Crimson Tide campus, has a lot of friends there in the student body, in addition to just feeling comfortable around the football program. So I think Alabama continues to set the pace for both Xavier Crowell and Darian Morgan right now.
All right, Steve, who are a few more big names you're hearing buzzing with the Tide?
Yeah, well, Alabama, they have on 3's number 5 ranked recruiting class right now. Obviously, the number 1 player in the state, Anthony Tank Jones, an edge rusher from Mobile, is someone that they have their sights set on. I think Alabama has had the inch in that recruitment at times. You know, Auburn, Oregon, Texas A&M, LSU providing major competition, but Anthony Tank Jones remains the top of the board, coveted recruit for the Crimson Tide. The number 1 corner in the country, Brandon Arrington, was at Alabama earlier this spring and named Alabama as leader coming out of the trip. Now look, USC, Oregon, Texas A&M, where he was this past weekend. Those are a few others that he is very high on, but Alabama, them having 2 starting corners from the state of California right now, it's exciting for him in Tuscaloosa. A couple more names to mention real quick, Josh. Sincere Johnson's a linebacker from the state of Ohio, number 1 ranked recruit out of the Buckeye State. Alabama is the biggest threat to Ohio State for Sincere Johnson. He's visited several times, has family from the area, feels very comfortable around the Alabama program. They want to hit big in Ohio a couple times this cycle. They were able to do it with the Hill kid last year, linebacker, beating the Buckeyes in Oregon for him. They would like to beat the Buckeyes, Oregon, and USC for Elbert Hill IV, one of the most coveted cornerback prospects in the land. They're in the top 2 with Georgia for Peach State 4-star pass rusher Kamari Brooks. And I think in our colleague Chad Simmons had the kid on the record, I believe, Alabama trending for Caden Hall, a safety linebacker target from Milton, Florida, who visited recently. So Alabama in the mix strongly for another top 5 recruiting class as they lead the way for some key guys in state, and they're right in it for some major blue chippers outside of the state.
The recruiting calendar has many seasons, and right now we are entering prediction season. You know how the calendar goes, Steve. You got top school season where the recruits start narrowing down their top schools. The spring is prediction season. Then the summer is commitment season. The fall comes around, that's decommitment season. And then early signing day is obviously flip season. So speaking of prediction season, you are getting busy on the recruiting prediction machine. Let's talk about some of these new predictions you've entered this week.
Well, first and foremost, Josh, it's not called flip season on the Wiltfong Whiparound. You know it's called spatula season. It'll be upon us soon enough. But some of these early commitments as spring and the weather heats up, the flowers are blooming. Landon Duckworth, the nation's number 6 quarterback per the On3 industry. There was a time where it looked like he was close to committing to Gus Malzahn and UCF. He's a former South Carolina commit. So this has been a fluid process. But right now, I like where Ole Miss stands. I had that UCF prediction. I needed to move it to the new program that's trending. That is Ole Miss. He's been in Oxford a couple times this calendar year. What Lane Kiffin does with quarterbacks and offense, the success the Rebels have had has been historic with Coach Kiffin in the corner office. His talks with Charlie Weiss Jr., he is really feeling Ole Miss right now. Now, Florida State, Gus Malzahn's there now. And that connection's great. And the Seminoles are in there. Georgia is in the mix for a few quarterbacks, from Jared Curtis to Bo Bentley to Jaden O'Neal. But Landon Duckworth has the Bulldogs on the short list as well. But I like where Ole Miss stands. I did not like my pick of UCF, so I am rocking with the Rebels for Landon Duckworth. I fired in an On3 RPM, joining our Jeremy Johnson for offensive lineman Malcolm Gaston, the Georgia. He took a recent visit to the Bulldogs campus. Coach Cyril's, Coach Smart and company are on the gas for Malcolm Gaston. I think they lead. My On3 RPM reflects that. Penn State's got the number 8 class in the country, Josh. They had a huge recruiting weekend. We should give them a little bit more due from that weekend with guys like Luke Wafel on campus, number 1 player from New Jersey. He could ultimately end up in Penn State's class as they battle Ohio State and Texas, among others. They're one of the 5 favorites for Nick Abrams, the On 300 linebacker from McDonough School in Pennsylvania. He's got a top 5 of Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, and Penn State, and Penn State's in the thick of that one. But my new prediction for Penn State is Matthew Canoe, an On 300 linebacker from Patriot High in Manassas, Virginia. My prediction joins Ryan Snyder and Sean Fitz. He told me that Penn State is his leader. Coming out of that visit to Happy Valley again, the Nittany Lions have the number 8 recruiting class in the country. I think that they ultimately add Canoe to the fold. They're in on a lot of those other elite guys. Carvin Meadows, 5-star edge rusher from Washington, D.C. Gonzaga. They got a great shot to land him. So Penn State's Final Four appearance in the college football playoff could help them pay dividends with some of these top targets that are on their board. And that will do it for today's episode of the Wiltfong Whiparound. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit like and subscribe to the On3 Recruits page so you're up to date on the best information on the platform. Take care, and we will see you on Thursday.